as I missed.
Comprehensive severe weather coverage from the Weather Channel.
Tropical storm Josephine causing all kinds of problems tonight, from tornadoes to high winds and heavy rainfalls. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike Seidel here in the Weather Channel Forecast Center, joined by our senior forecaster, Stu Ostro. And Stu, it's not quite a hurricane, but still it has its own problems associated with it.
That's right. Did never attain hurricane status, and it is about out of time. In fact, it's not about out of time. It is out of time. It is making landfall now, so that's good news, but still quite a stormy night to deal with.
Let's take a look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center as of 8 Eastern, and we will have a new advisory in just before 11 o'clock tonight. By that time, it should be on land, 29.4 north, 84.7 west, and we just got the latest recon in. The pressure now is down 1 millibar, 982 millibars, and that's what it was at about 5 o'clock this afternoon. Sustained winds of 70 miles an hour, so Stu, it is almost a hurricane.
Almost, but again, fortunately, even though it deepened about 11 millibars overnight, which is fairly significant, but done over the course of about 6 hours, so it's about 2 millibars an hour, which is not explosive deepening. After it went through that phase, it did level off, and there's been some minor fluctuations since then, 982, 983 in there, but it has not been an environment conducive to further strengthening.
Yeah, we don't have the waters of the Gulf Stream, much like we have on the Atlantic, so we do not think there will be any rapid change in strength before it makes landfall this evening.
Right. The water temperature is a little farther south and southwest over the Gulf. We're more in the 82, 83 degree range, which is enough to support further strengthening. The water it's over now is a little closer to 80, which is a little more marginal. Perhaps more importantly, very strong winds in the upper part of the atmosphere are shearing the system apart, and also a little bit of cooler, drier air now starting to get involved in the storm circulation. So with all of that adding up, no additional strengthening occurred during the afternoon or evening hours.
Let's get the latest from Bill Keneally. He joins us live from Cross City, Florida. Bill has been watching the situation from that vantage point since earlier today. Bill, what is the latest as far as the weather in that area?
Mike, I'm not sure what it shows on the radar. Our power is back up. The cable's still out, unfortunately, but it does appear to be a little bit in the way of drier air, although it is coming in now from the southwest, so it feels kind of muggy out there. But we are relatively rain-free right now. Reports are coming in, by the way, from outlying areas, and they're not really very good reports either. Reports on the waterfront in a couple of cases in Sewanee, the town of Sewanee. That is where the river dumps into the Gulf, of a lot of flooding, and also flooding reports coming in from Horseshoe Beach areas. And this area, 15 miles southwest of us, still will have to deal with an oncoming tide. It's not topping out at high tide until midnight local time.
Jim, this is Stu Ostro, or Jim, Bill, this is Stu Ostro. Have you noticed any increase in the wind at all over the past couple of hours as the center, albeit a very disorganized and ragged center, gets a little closer?
Yes, Stu, we have. It's taken all day for that wind to start veering around or turning in a clockwise direction. It was unrelenting east wind much of the daytime, kept it relatively cool here, but now it's starting to turn relatively quickly, and I think we're already around to the south, maybe even the south-southwest, and that is helping to pump in that air, which is over that 80-degree water that you talked about, and it is feeling a lot warmer, a little bit thicker air right now, but it's still not allowing for any more rainfall, as it looks like, as you said, some drier air got entrained in that circulation.
And how about the situation, Bill, with the flooding? All that rainfall has to go somewhere, all that water has to go somewhere, and what are the expectations? And can you compare this to 93?
Well, Mike, regarding the rain that fell over the interior, it's going to be a while. We have the Sewanee River, which has headwaters up around the Okefenokee Swamp in southeastern Georgia. That's got a fairly long ways to go. Now, it does empty out. It bottoms out in the Gulf of Mexico about 10 miles south of here in the town of Sewanee. Now, I want to reiterate, though, the flooding in Sewanee is from the tidal surge, not from the river. That's going to be a few days down the road. In addition, the Santa Fe River as well will likely take a while to crest. Regarding the water on the waterfront, it's nothing like it was in 1993. As far as we can tell, that is when we had upwards of a 9 and 10-foot storm surge. And believe it or not, when that did occur, that water came in 2.5 miles. Now, we do have a crew down there. Simon Temperton is down there, and he's going to report back hopefully in the next 30 minutes. And we've had walkie-talkie contact with these folks, and the water is getting higher by the minute.
Okay, Bill, I'm destined to get even higher as we roll on towards high tide and landfall with Josephine. Bill Keneally reporting live from Cross City, Florida. Now let's get you updated on the watches and warnings. No changes for the past 6 hours. We still have those hurricane warnings from Apalachicola around the Big Bend to the Pinellas-Pasco County line. That includes Cedar Key, all those beaches, Lighthouse Point over towards Deckle Beach and Steinhatchee Beach. We're still going to watch those areas for the possibility of a pretty decent storm surge, although we do not expect it to be as bad as March of '93. And tropical storm warnings are up for a good deal of the South Carolina coast. In fact, the entire coastline down to Cape Canaveral. And over on the west coast of Florida, Tampa, St. Pete, you are in a tropical storm warning too. I meant to say tropical storm warnings too for South Carolina down to Cape Canaveral. And Stu, here's the latest from our infrared perspective. We obviously have two areas of concern as far as the heavy rainfalls tonight.
That's right, Mike. We have this one big blob of convection, which we'll see as it goes into motion, coming on shore now. Convection meaning the rising air currents, the deeper oranges and yellows where the heavy rain is. Also, this band in here funneling the moisture directly onshore to the central and south central Florida coast. In between, however, there's this little slot of dry air coming in, which is basically affecting the area that Bill is in at the moment. And what we're hoping is that without the deeper rain clouds, which sometimes tend to focus as stronger wind gusts, maybe they won't have winds quite as strong as otherwise would be. And in general, what we're seeing on the satellite photo is very typical with what we would expect to see in a very disorganized system, in contrast to a major Category 3, Category 4 hurricane, which is usually very well organized, very symmetric, and very strong winds right around the center.
And Stu, there's a look at the storm surge prediction, 6 to 10 feet there in Appalachia Bay. Some of the same areas that got hit in '93, but again, we're not expecting it to be quite as bad.
That's right, and at the bottom of the arrow we'll get a little deeper into comparison between the March '93 storm and Tropical Storm Josephine.
Here's a look at the radar as we take the wide vantage point. Already some of those heavy rains now crossing into southern Georgia, and those rains will be moving up the coast tonight and tomorrow. Let's go in a bit closer and look at the Doppler and get an idea. And now it looks like...
Of course, Mike told you all about what's going on with our tropical storm, Josephine. We want to take a look at what's going on across the rest of the country right now. And here's our map, and you can see where most of the activity is. Of course, in the southeast here, we've got wet weather well up into the Carolinas, but we also have a little rain and even some thunderstorms here through the central states, through Texas and into Oklahoma, on up towards the Great Lakes region. But you notice in the west, high pressure and control, things very quiet here, and you're in for a rather dry and warm spell as we head through the coming days. But that will not be the case, certainly as we head into the east. A lot of wet weather here, flood watches in the areas in darker green, quite an extensive area where the potential is there for flooding rains. We've got that wet weather again into the Carolinas. Most of South Carolina covered in wet weather, and most of eastern and central North Carolina getting rain as well. Durham and Raleigh, back towards Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, Columbia, all getting wet, and we see that over towards Macon, Georgia, Augusta getting soggy conditions too, and get used to it because it's going to be here tonight and on into tomorrow. Well, as I mentioned, we've got some wet weather elsewhere.